Season 3, Episode 5 of Better Call Saul is one of the most iconic episodes of the series. A lasting legacy of this episode is the adoption in popular culture of the word chicanery.
You think this is bad? This chicanery?
You may have heard someone in real life or online use the word in reference to some kind of wacky hijinks. However, most times I've heard the word used colloquially, it's used incorrectly. The pedantic side of me wants to shout from the rooftops about the real meaning of the word, while the more socially minded side of me questions if a word's meaning is more so linked to common understanding rather than original intended use. Let's take a look at the definition of the word chicanery, examine its use in Better Call Saul, and discuss the true meaning of language. The word chicanery is first used in Better Call Saul in the episode titled Chicanery. I'm not gonna go over every last detail of the 2.5 seasons of drama that leads to this point. So the gist of it is that there's these two brothers. They're both lawyers. One's a highly educated head of a law firm, while the other is a bordering on crooked rule bender. Chuck, the educated one, is a key witness in a hearing regarding whether or not Jimmy, the semi-crooked one, will lose his law license. Using tricks, Jimmy reveals Chuck's mental illness before the court, causing Chuck to launch into a highly emotional tirade. A tirade that refers to Jimmy's tricks as chicanery. What makes this scene, and many other courtroom scenes in Better Call Saul, so meaningful is the clash between the analytical, evidence-based nature of a courtroom against emotion-based human nature. Many of those in the courtroom act as though this is only about the incidents being arbitrated, while Jimmy flat out states they're really in that courtroom because
my brother hates me.
Chuck then, in his final outburst, rants and raves about grievances that are highly personal and that he has no physical evidence for, even though they totally happened. There are other elements of the episode that make it effective as well. Scene structure, pacing, shot composition, but the struggle between the personal and evidential is truly what's at the heart of the narrative, and what makes this episode stand out as one of the many peaks of Better Call Saul. This episode being elevated so high above others in the series is a contributing factor to the popularity of the episode's titular word, chicanery.
Chicanery?
But why does Chuck refer to Jimmy's actions as chicanery? The dictionary definition of chicanery is the use of trickery to achieve a political, financial, or legal purpose. So, in the episode, Chuck used the word correctly, as Jimmy's actions were in service of achieving a more favorable outcome in court. However, this full definition is not entirely evident in Chuck's words. He doesn't ever explain to the audience what the subtleties of the word's definition or its origin, and since this is such an obscure, scholarly word the average viewer wouldn't immediately know, the original definition could go over most people's heads. That includes me, by the way. I didn't know what this word meant before I watched the show. Someone could easily hear Chuck say chicanery and then parrot the word in response to something like, for example, a child drawing on the walls in crayon. However, that child's actions are not chicanery, as the child did not draw on the walls for political, legal, or financial gain. The true meaning of the word chicanery actually makes Chuck using it in relation to Jimmy even more meaningful. In this particular episode, Jimmy's actions are undeniably chicanery, but there are other instances in the series where Jimmy pulls scams on people. And while Jimmy often profits from these scams, his true reason for pulling these scams is to feel power over others, which is definitionally not chicanerous. There's even a scene where, after Jimmy convinces someone to write him a check for $10,000 under false pretenses, he doesn't even cash it, even though he claims that he could. It wasn't about the money, it was about winning. Much like the child drawing on the walls, he did it for no real reason. So, in understanding the true definition of chicanery, it gives us a better understanding of Chuck's perspective of Jimmy. To Chuck, what Jimmy does is all for legal or financial gain. He doesn't acknowledge the personal element to it. He doesn't connect to Jimmy and attempt to understand the root of why he is the way he is. Of course, Jimmy, being a sad bean with unresolved daddy issues who copes by scamming people, is not in any way a justification of his actions, but perhaps if Chuck had the ability to recognize the real reasons why Jimmy acts as he does, they could have come to a different resolution. So that's what chicanery meant at the time of the episode's airing. It was an obscure word, probably only used by political science professors and lawyers. Before Better Call Saul, any person learning this word would have had an idea of its true meaning and would likely only use it in the correct context. But now, Chuck's legendary chicanery outbursts and people memeing about Chuck is how most people learn the word. And learning the word either of those two ways would make you think it is simply a synonym for hijinks. So if most people now use chicanery to just mean hijinks regardless of the intent, has the definition changed? After all, words are really only what we make of them. They're only as valuable as our understanding. The dictionary doesn't write the words. Society creates the words, and the dictionary tries its best to keep up. Where chicanery before meant that a presumably well-educated person was accusing someone of foul play for political, financial, or legal gain, it now is a playful way to refer to something wacky by invoking the memory of crazy lawyer man Chuck McGill.
I am not crazy!
Whoa, okay, Chuck. I would bet that those academics that once used the word for its intended purpose now avoid it so as to not be compared to Chuck. As much as I love the chicanery speech and the subsequent popular adoption of the phrase, I do think it's important to appreciate its actual original application and maybe even try to use it for its intended purpose sometime. Just don't yell it out in a courtroom outburst. That didn't go so well the first time. Hey, if you like this video, maybe you'd like to check out this other video right here. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.